Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm a peer support mentor for CCC, and I'm also affected by LARS. I had stage 3 rectal cancer. So today's series was made possible by Hannah, who is the patient support specialist for Colorectal Cancer Canada. I reached out to Hannah when I was having a hard time finding support for what I called LARS. And she was the first person I talked to when I called CCC. And she basically just said, oh, okay, well, there's not enough info. Well, let's change that. Okay, here we go. What can we do? So this is kind of how it started today. She's a go-getter, and she's helping us bring these important issues forward and to get support for, our group. So our goal today, Hannah, you will jump in anytime you want to. It'll be like a kind of a tag team thing if needed. So what our goal is today is we really want you to be able to take away some tips and ideas to help you manage your LARS. And at the very least, know that you're not alone in this. You can reach out to CCC anytime. Just email Hannah, and she'll be getting right back to you. We're going to start today with an introduction on LARS from Dr. Jenny Moon. She's from McGill University, and she's also going to share some of her current research initiatives that are taking place to help mitigate the effects of LARS. Then we're going to be joined by our nutritional consultant today, Jill Haverstock. She's going to help us with some Q&As. And if time permits, we'll see how many questions we get and where the conversation goes. We'd like to kind of open it up to a discussion on what's working for you in managing LARS. Maybe you have some ideas you'd like to share. And if we cannot get to everyone, and this happens to be a bigger discussion we anticipate, we are doing another series next week with Dr. Megan Bernard, and we will make sure that we have some time in there as well. So we anticipate this session going about an hour to an hour and a half. And it just basically depends again on how many questions we get. So I'd now like to pass it on to Dr. Jenny Moon.
Great, I'm gonna just share my screen. Can everybody see the full slides?
Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you, Connie, for the introduction. My name is Jenny. I'm a resident physician in general surgery, and I'm currently taking a break from clinical activities to do research under the mentorship of Dr. Marilise Boutros, who's a colorectal surgeon at the Jewish General Hospital. And our main interest is LARS and quality of life after rectal cancer surgery. And I'll present a couple of our research initiatives to support people in their journey with LARS. A lot of our trials are still active and recruiting participants across Canadian sites. And I'd be happy to talk to you in more detail about each of the studies by email if you're interested in participating in any of them. So just to start with a short introduction, colorectal cancer is the third most commonly diagnosed cancer in Canada, and rectal cancer is 1/3 of that. And with lots of great advances in multidisciplinary rectal cancer care, a lot of the patients are able to avoid having a permanent ostomy. And currently, restorative proctectomy, which means removing the rectum with restoration of bowel continuity, seen on the right, is the most common procedure performed for rectal cancer. Studies have shown that up to 70 to 90% in some studies of rectal cancer survivors following restorative proctectomy have long-term changes in their bowel function that can really impair their quality of life. And we call this low anterior resection syndrome, or LARS. And it refers to a constellation of bowel symptoms that can range anywhere from frequency, urgency, incontinence, clustering of bowel movements that can affect patients following restorative proctectomy. And although symptoms may improve in the first 1 to 2 years after surgery, there have been longitudinal studies that followed patients for longer and reported adverse symptoms up to 15 years after the initial surgery. The frustrating aspect of LARS is that there's really no sort of one-size-fits-all treatment, and treatment is very individualized and symptom-based. And studies have also shown that people living with LARS experience a lot of anxiety, isolation, and hopelessness related to these symptoms. So following feedback from our rectal cancer survivors here at our institution that they really felt underprepared to manage their LARS symptoms, especially early on after surgery, and that there was a lack of existing credible information and support for LARS, we designed the following research initiatives that I'll talk about. So first, we developed a LARS patient-centered program, which is composed of 2 different aspects. So first, an educational booklet on LARS that goes over why LARS happens, what are some of the risk factors and existing management strategies for LARS, and as well as an access to a LARS expert nurse following people's ileostomy closures. And the program is currently under study and recruiting participants. We then created an online educational and peer support web-based app, which contains the same information on the booklet, except in an online format. In addition to that, there's a secure online peer support forum among rectal cancer survivors living with LARS. And this forum is moderated by peer mentors who are also rectal cancer survivors that have had some degree of success in managing their LARS symptoms and have volunteered their time to help others who are experiencing similar symptoms as them. So we tested the online app for its usability in a small group of patients before launching the study. And the participants were incredibly appreciative of this, having access to this app. First, people disclosed that they really had limited access to information on LARS before having access to this app, and they really didn't know where to look for credible information. But after using the app, they reported that the educational modules really gave them important information and that the app was clear and accessible for them. The second theme identified was that people living with LARS really faced lack of support in their journey with bowel dysfunction after surgery. They really felt alone, and some even said that they felt like a leper. And after using the forum on the app, people felt they weren't in this alone and felt that the forum was a safe environment where they could talk about their bowel symptoms without the fear of being judged by other people. So here's an update on where we are currently. We've recruited 5 peer mentors across Canada. 51 people have completed the study, and there are 35 new participants who are actively enrolled. And if you're interested in joining the study, you could always contact me by email, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. So just to go over some of the more popular features, we've filmed short interview videos on various topics of interest, including perianal skincare, pelvic physiotherapy, diet and medication use for bowel symptom control. And to engage people, we also conducted some online surveys on food triggers, medications, lifestyle changes that people have made for LARS, and then made these results available for people. And we've also had live chat nights on the app with special guests to stimulate discussion around various topics related to LARS. So it's been it's honestly been such an incredible experience for me, because I'm the one involved in the study. And I've learned so much from just talking to participants, to people, and also the peer mentors, and it's been such a great experience. And lastly, this is a study that we're just launching now, but we're recruiting people who are more than 6 months out from their LAR rectal cancer surgery, and we're trying to see if there's any benefit in doing transanal irrigation for managing LARS. And in a COVID-friendly fashion, we'll be mailing the device for transanal irrigation, and also setting up teaching sessions with healthcare professionals so that people can become comfortable using these devices and monitoring how their LARS progresses while undergoing these interventions. And just to conclude, I just wanted to reiterate that, LARS is real. You're not the only ones going through this. I've spoken to so many people living with LARS, and it takes a huge toll on your life. And as people struggle and experiment to find their new normal, we really find that support and education can be really beneficial for people in their journey. So that's the goal of our research team. And I hope you remember that from this presentation, at least, that there are people out there to help you, and that there are people to reach out to. So this is my contact information, as well as the contact info of our research associate. And if you contact me by email, I'd be happy to carry on the discussion further. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to the next talk.
Thanks so much, Jenny. I know that I'm really looking forward to seeing that app in action. I'm on the list and I've just started using it. So thank you.
And actually, in fact, I think that Jenny had posted tonight's session, or, the series on, so I know we have some joiners from there too. So thank you for that, Jenny. And it's, it's in action. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that things are happening on this topic. Thank you. So now we'll get into our Q&A session that everyone is here for as well. I want to introduce our nutrition coach, Jill Haverstock. I had the pleasure of working with Jill recently for my LARS issues, and I went to her because I feel like I just couldn't get enough information on how to get the nutrients in me. I couldn't have a lot of vegetables. Salads don't agree with me. The brat diet was not working. I was feeling very low energy and not well, and I wanted some options. So hopefully we're gonna, bring some topics forward and suggestions. I just want to remind everybody that this isn't medical advice by any means. As Jenny mentioned, everybody's body is different. So my triggers might be very different than your triggers. Jill's going to be giving us just ideas to help us try new things, right? I mean, one of the things that we first learn is to start a food journal to make sure that we know which foods agree and which foods didn't agree with us. And usually it's like the day before we ate it, we either recognize it late that night when we're up all night that there was something today I ate. And I can't even remember what it is now because I didn't write it down. So the benefit of actually writing it down. So again, just want to reiterate, this is not for medical advice, okay? How it's going to work is if you have specific questions, please write them in the chat and I'll keep the chat open. And, or you can use the electronic reaction if that's easier for you. You can go under reactions and say raise hand. But it might be easier just to, quickly write it in the chat and I will read it out and we can have a discussion on it. I've come with a few to start the conversation. So Jill, hello, and welcome. Good to see you.
Thanks so much, Connie. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. One of the things I think we should first just kind of talk about briefly is everyone's at different stages here. So if we can just kind of reiterate really fast on those foods that we know are consistently trouble for people, right? The nuts, the seeds for a lot of people are an issue. Popcorn, although it is a sin for me, but I love it. And if I know I'm going to be home for 24 hours, I sometimes will cheat and eat it. But yeah, there are definitely a certain foods. Do you have some insight into there?
Absolutely. It'd be really interesting to know. It's like you said, and also Dr. Moon mentioned, everyone is unique and everyone is different. And I'm not sure, can everyone hear me and see me okay? Okay, good, because it's not coming up. Excellent. So yes, popcorn. When we think about certain foods, we think about the fiber that is insoluble, meaning it doesn't break down and it can be very hard on our intestinal lining. So fibrous foods like popcorn. For some people, the cruciferous vegetables are really problematic. So broccoli, right? That stem is really too hard to break down. Cauliflower, sometimes cabbage, but cabbage is a bit on its own. Some people can tolerate it. Like you said, nuts, sometimes pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds can irritate. Some other things that we may not think about, caffeine can be very stimulating to the bowel itself. And each individual can tolerate caffeine differently. Some may need to have dairy with it or not, or, different types of nut milks. Alcohol can be problematic for individuals. It can absorb too readily. Beer as well, it can ferment in the gut. And I think we're going to be talking about the FODMAP diet maybe a little bit later on, and that we can get into that discussion as well with things that ferment.
Mhm.
And have you
Yeah.
heard oranges can cause, tangerines, regular oranges, grapefruit, citrus, eaten, like peeled and eaten, that can actually sometimes cause, it can bulk up and cause obstructions. So I don't know if anyone in this
No.
with us now, or even, anyone who's going to be watching on the replay, be mindful of oranges. Journal that in your food journal and just see if there's any sensitivities there.
Yeah. Would that consist of mandarin oranges too? Like any oranges?
Yes.
Good
It's
to
really, it's
know.
the pith. It's the white pith that doesn't really
Oh,
break down readily enough.
okay.
And so on the one hand, we think that's good because that's fiber and that can actually help bulk up the stool and move things through. But on the other hand, for some individuals, it could be constipating and it can be too bulking.
Hmm. Yeah, I can hear that now as I ate some mandarin oranges yesterday. And I was up last night too much. So thank you. I didn't realize that one. And I just want to notice that you said caffeine, right? Coffee, especially, but you did give me a tip that I want to mention is the collagen in my coffee, right? You said that is easier on the gut, and I have been doing that. And actually, I can tolerate, and thank goodness I can, because
Yeah.
I love my coffee and it has not bothered me since I've been doing that and making sure I'm not on an empty stomach too.
That's excellent. So for collagen, you are specifically doing a powdered collagen, right?
Yeah.
There's different
Yes.
types. There's
Oh,
liquid.
okay.
Okay. So yes, powdered collagen, a scoop. So this is collagen, for anyone who doesn't know, is actually the tissues that are found like in the joints, in knuckles, etc. And it's usually in bovine, in cattle. And it can actually help us build our own tissues. So if you're feeling depleted, if you're finding that you're low on protein, if you're watching your macronutrients, you're recording your foods, and you're noticing protein is an issue, having collagen may help.
Jill, can I interrupt for a minute and just, in terms of daily allotment of something like collagen, I'm sure that there's a limit on that.
So it's typically, the package may come with a scoop. It's about a tablespoon. So 1 to 2 tablespoons a day is enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So only like 1 to 2 cups of coffee type of thing. Okay.
So yeah, while we're on the coffee, I'm wondering, let's see, we do have a message here. What about decaf coffee? Is there any components in decaf coffee that could be a problem? Is decaf coffee, doesn't it actually still have caffeine?
There's a little bit of caffeine, yes.
Okay, but not enough to really pose an issue, I guess. Hey?
That's right.
Okay.
The other thing with coffee, whether it's caffeinated, decaffeinated, and this goes with black teas as well, is they can be dehydrating to the body. So whatever type of black tea or caffeinated beverage of any sort or decaf, just ensure that you're having 1 to 2 glasses of water throughout the day for each cup of coffee, just to keep your bowel hydrated. That goes for your skin as well. So that's to be mindful.
So when you say hydration, I'm curious about coconut water, because I know that, gosh, I feel like I can drink so much water and then just end up in the washroom for the rest of the day, just trying to hydrate. Would coconut water absorb different? I've heard this, and I just kind of want to know kind of the truth on it.
The nice thing about coconut water is it naturally contains electrolytes. It naturally has magnesium and potassium in it. And these are the things that actually help us from being dehydrated. So that's a really good point, Connie, and that would be nice to have. Whether you have it at room temperature or if you like a cold drink, coconut water is quite nice.
Sorry, Joe, what was the first that you said? So it's magnesium, potassium, and what was the first additive or additive?
I think that's
benefit?
all.
Yeah, okay. There was
For
something else.
electrolytes.
Electrolytes. Thank you.
Electrolyte. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've received a question that I know I had a question on as well, is in regards to clustering. So I'm curious, and I know others are as well, when we eat something, what is the time delay that we know clustering happens? Is it 12 hours later? Is it, do you know that?
Do we all know what clustering is though? Like, I just want to make sure that everyone understands the term. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Clustering is when anytime you go to the washroom, like several times within an hour,
Okay.
basically.
Okay.
So you could go 5, 6 times, all of a sudden you get up, you feel like you're never done and you go back again. So that's clustering.
Okay.
Do you understand, like, is it different foods cause different transit times?
Yes. And each person is different.
Okay.
And I know no one wants to hear that, right? We want to know, okay, if I eat this, it's going to take 2 hours. If I eat this, it's going to take an hour. Also think back to pre-diagnosis, pre-surgery. Did you have irritable bowel syndrome? Not you, anyone. Like, think about your transit time. Were you regular? Did you tend towards constipation? Was it every 2 to 3 days? Was there a bowel movement? And then think about where you are now, and is there clustering? Is there, all of a sudden you need to go 3, 4, 5 times within an hour, and then you're okay. So there isn't, typically food will ingest it. For some people, it can be within an hour that it's going to actually move through the digestive system and out. For other people, typically it's 8 to 12 hours after a meal.
Okay.
And everyone is different. And it also depends on, I'm going to say, the integrity. So it depends on the stomach, how digestion is happening, if there's enough bile acids, if there is enough hydrochloric acid to actually break down proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And digestion begins in the mouth as well. So we also have to think, we're very focused on our bowel with LARS, but there's a whole, there's also the small intestine, if we are actually breaking down, assimilating, absorbing the nutrients.
Yeah. I'm hearing that it's absorption is a really big thing, right? So it is dependent as well as what we are eating.
Mhm.
I know for me, in my experience, it's worse when, like you said, we need the macronutrients. And so I was thinking at one point, and actually until I talked to you, was that I was eating a lot of breads, right? Because I
Yeah.
just felt like, the white was going to help
Absorb.
stop things and absorb. And I just wanted a LARS free day to get me through, but I was feeling like crap. As you know, I even broke out in a rash because I just wasn't getting the proper nutrient balance. But, and I was taking Metamucil. And then again, at the same time, I was told by one of the doctors at the cancer center was, oh, you know what, you should back off of Metamucil so much and maybe start thinking of more Imodium. But I knew what my body felt like it was doing when I was on Imodium. So I try and balance that. But since talking about nutrients, you gave me a nice alternative to Metamucil. Do you remember what that was?
Sure do. Yes.
And since then, I have to admit, I have been sprinkling it on almost most of my foods that I can, like my yogurt that I'll have in the morning, I'll sprinkle it on. And I feel like I'm getting more nutrients because there's other things in it and not the sugar. Like I only liked the Metamucil, to be honest, that had the sugar, because Metamucil on its own is, it's just nasty. But especially when I was drinking it, right? So I don't even have to drink it now because I'm putting it with things. So can you tell us what that special bag of stuff is called?
So it is actually a product out of Vancouver, I believe. Okay, so it's totally from Canada. It does contain psyllium, which is the key ingredient in Metamucil, and that can be very hard for people to digest. Well, you don't even digest it. It can be hard on the bowel. So this product is called Nutracleanse. All right, and I can put a link to it later if you'd like. So Nutracleanse, all one words, it's not a cleanse. It's kind of a misnomer of a name. There's 5 ingredients in it, and there are 5 different types of powder. Fiber. So just to give you just a quick overview, like I said, there's slippery elm. So slippery elm is actually, it's a plant, and it's mucilaginous, meaning it has a gel-like quality when water is added to it. And this is very beneficial for our digestive systems because it's soft in the sense of it's going to move things through more gentle. Bulk things up, slow it down. There's burdock, which is more like a root. There's fenugreek, which for anybody watching who knows, fenugreek is a plant. It's a seed, very good for actually our esophagus. So if there's any sores or discomfort there is ground flax, and there's some dandelion root. The dandelion root is powdered, and that's going to help absorb water. So this is a beautiful product. I actually had a client a few years ago who uses this product and makes a very special, like a granola bar almost with it. And she will eat this. She's a hairdresser. She stands all day, and she needs a product that will actually bulk up the stool, hold it there in a sense. And this Nutracleanse really has helped her.
Yeah, it has. It's
You've
helped
noticed
me.
a difference, Connie?
You know what I have?
Yeah.
I haven't had to go to my Metamucil. If
Good.
anything, I should start taking it doing it twice a day, closer to the end of the evening as well. But Xavier, you have a question.
Yeah, it's a follow-up to that this question about fiber. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if, so I was suggested that I take the fiber, I take Metamucil, but during meals to try to bulk things up so I don't have to, so it doesn't cost her as much. And I read or heard that it's better to not drink during the meals so that that fiber absorbs whatever is in the food that you eat, and then eat between meals. Is there some truth to that, or like what would you recommend from a drinking? Because I used to drink a lot during my my meals, and so then I tried to do things differently, but I'm not sure whether that I saw a difference.
I think that's a really good point. And yes, if you can manage not to have too much liquid as you are eating food, that will also help enzymes that are naturally present in your stomach to break down food as well. So that's one aspect of it. And yes, it will also help for the fiber to absorb what liquid you are having with your meal. So I think that's a really good approach, Xavier.
Thank you.
Jill, thank you for that, Xavier. There's also someone's asking about whether this Nutracleanse would be appropriate for somebody who has a temporary ostomy. Is that something that you could speak to, please?
Yes, I don't know the person individually. However, if start small, do perhaps half of the recommendation and just see how you tolerate it. And that really goes for any of us who are listening with any type of anything that you try fiber-wise. Start small and gradually titrate up, gradually have some, just to see how you, how things are.
How you react to it.
React.
Yeah. Okay. There was also just, I'm not sure if you're going to be supplying some of these, but some people are interested in knowing about snack recipes. Maybe that's something either we can address now, or I can always send it along later.
I do have some recipes. I created a PDF for you. I haven't put any snack recipes in there. Okay, so tell me what kind of snacks you're looking for.
Are we talking snacks during treatments, potentially chemo or radiation treatments, or just, on the go typically? Anyone can just put it in the chat and we'll read it out if you have specific questions. Oh, Jennifer B.
That was my question, so I'll just
sure.
Follow along, Jill. Nice to see you. It was mostly for me anyway. I don't know about everybody else. I'm post-treatment, but I really find meals I can manage, and I tend to use the same ones that I know are safe. But I get really bored eating this. 3 o'clock at work is a really snack time for me, and so crackers and cheese is safe but boring. And so I don't know, just anything that's easy, small snacks to get you through till supper time. Because I find if I get hungry, then I'll eat something dangerous because it's available. And then, so I try to get ahead of that.
So we also want to think about eating for fueling our brain, especially if we're working. We're living on Zoom calls now and videos, and we need a lot of fuel for our brains as well. And that comes from protein and fat. So a boiled egg, hard-boiled egg, sliced, could have half of that. You could have that with crackers. You could even have leftover scrambled egg. So something soft, but a protein base. If you can tolerate a smoothie, a protein-based smoothie, it doesn't have to have, it can have blueberries in it rather than raspberries, anything with seeds in the fruit. So if you can have a very non-fibery smoothie that has protein in it from like a whey-based protein. Another option, what is wrong with having some leftover chicken breast? If this is for people who, do eat poultry. I know there are probably some vegetarians watching as well. Right, because with LARS, many of us are avoiding beans, legumes. Maybe we're having chickpeas, it depends, but usually if we can, I like to see anything like a chickpea in hummus. So things that are pureed. they're almost pre-digested for you and easier for you for the bowel to break down.
Those are some really good suggestions, actually.
Apples, I don't know if people can have applesauce, apple without the peel. Depends on what you can tolerate, right?
Generally is peel, I hear peel is not good, you know,
No.
in general. So this is basically, as you said, by peeling fruit, vegetables too, I guess, and maybe even, you know, breaking it up a little bit. It's interesting that it looks pre-digested, but it actually is. Okay. We have had another question. So slightly off the nutrition topic, so I'm not sure if you're going to be able to address this, but the best medication to sort of slow things down, loperamide, Imodium or
Loperamide, yeah.
Lomotil, Loperamide or Lomotil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might have to be for next week with
yeah.
Dr. Megan, only because there's a lot of different ones out there, and I'm sure people have all tried, you know, a variety. If you have a suggestion for Xavier, please put it in the chat just so he can maybe even ask his doctor about it, if something has worked for you. I know I just mentioned it briefly in the chat. I don't know if I did it to everybody, but I have recently switched to one and I'm off of it already within 2 weeks because I felt awful on it. So, and it was crazy expensive. But I was at a stage where I desperately wanted to get through nights because I had exams. And if anything, I just felt wacky in my brain. It was on Ondansetron. It's usually meant when you have chemo, which I'm sure a lot of people who've had chemo usually had that for nausea. And my GI had recommended it as something she thought would work better than Lotomil, I think it's called, because she said Lotomil, I think Lillian's nodding, but she knows what I'm talking about, is very similar to Imodium. And my body wasn't doing much with Imodium. I was up to taking 5 a night in one lot. So I think we need to maybe address Dr. Megan on that next week and just see if she has any tips. I also know that, as Jenny mentioned about the irrigation, that is something new that was recommended to me as well to do before bed to get past the clustering to help me sleep. To be honest, I haven't found, I did it once, but apparently in different group chats I've listened to, it's something you actually have to do ongoing to get any relief from. So that's just another topic, but just trying to address the drug one.
Okay. It's also one about blueberries, eh? Were you going to address the blueberry one? Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's different, I think, with blueberries because I eat them and I don't have a problem. But Jill, I would imagine it's one of those works for some, not with others.
And you know, having blueberries frozen in a smoothie and blended is a different experience than putting them in fresh.
Oh, okay.
And
I have them frozen.
Yes, and play around with both when you're home on the weekend, and you know, and can see how the body reacts to that. Or
thank you. I also have the same question Jennifer had. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't put your name to it. I apologize. But I am a muncher. I love my snacks at night. I try desperately not to eat after 6. But I am in evening classes, and I tell you, I go downstairs and I see people snacking and I grab something. So really, how does that affect us getting through the night? Because does it really push things right away? Which is, you know, what's my cutoff? When should I kind of look at not eating past a certain time so my bowels can settle down? Do you have any kind of words of wisdom there, Jill? Tough one.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think it's trial and error. And it comes down to knowing what your safe foods are.
Trying to
Yeah.
eat those later in the day,
Yeah.
closer to bedtime. There's actually, to tie in with that, sorry to interrupt, there's a really good question actually about intermittent fasting with LARS. You know, that's a hot topic these days, not just in cancer care, but so the thought process is being less meals equal less digestion issues. But I mean, is this something that you speak to patients about? Are you a fan of this way of eating?
It's usually linked more with the intermittent fasting is usually linked more with managing, balancing insulin sensitivity and trying to manage weight. It's also linked with, for some people who during treatment, chemo radiation may do intermittent fasting, and there is research, especially with chemotherapy, that it could be quite beneficial. So intermittent fasting, meaning eating at specific times of the day, it's called hours, and then not eating for prolonged periods. So the easiest way to start, if you want to think of it for anyone who may not be familiar with intermittent fasting, let's say you finish eating at 6 p.m. at night, you would then not snack, Connie, you would not snack till breakfast. So let's say breakfast is 8 a.m. So 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. is 14 hours that you're not eating. That's considered a 14-hour fast. Some people are doing one meal a day. That's called OMAD.
Wow.
So that is beneficial for individuals who have a fatty liver, who have a lot of weight to lose, for individuals who have perhaps heart disease. There are type 2 diabetics are also trying intermittent fasting. Again, it should, in my opinion, it should be done with a practitioner, someone who can help coach you through. There's a lot that you can Google on your own. There's podcasts, there's books. And in terms of LARS, the literature tells us to try to have more frequent, smaller meals throughout the day. Has everybody read that in their, post-surgery, et cetera? So
I've been
maybe
hearing
5.
this for years and years,
Yeah.
pre-cancer stuff,
Yeah.
but so this is not a myth. This is the right way to eat.
It depends.
Okay.
So everything that I know that I learned in nutrition in the 90s and in the 2000s, right? And I did a degree that was towards dietetics. Now we've shifted and it's very individualized. It's not about 3 main meals a day, 2 snacks and having lots of calories. It's very individualized. And I'm getting a bit off topic, but to me, it links with LARS and intermittent fasting is knowing your genetics. Knowing, should you eat more of vegetarian, more plants? Should you eat more animal? Can you do both? So the way nutrition is going, it's becoming very much personalized. And I think that that's the way with intermittent fasting as well. And I would say that, if I was speaking to somebody one-on-one about intermittent fasting, I would really look at your current weight, what your nutrition goals are, what your lifestyle is, what your exercise habits are. Are you sleeping well? Are you stressed? Are you moving through menopause? Andropause, if you're male. There's all these factors. For some people who start fasting, their stress levels go up. For some people who start fasting, they have more energy and vibrancy. So it's very much an answer that I cannot say definitely to embrace it. If you want to read more on it and try it, then just try that overnight fast, which you may be doing anyway.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Does that clarify or does that
Absolutely.
just confuse everybody? Because
Yeah, thank you.
The personalized approach makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Connie, you wanted to go ahead? We have a couple of questions in the chat. Are you going to
Yeah.
address them? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one specifically I know that I struggle with is you had mentioned, it's very personalized. And I used to be vegetarian and then, was trying to get as much veggies in me and fruits. But since having LARS, there's this trying to eat for cancer and then there's having LARS. And the hard part is the more healthy I eat, the more LARS comes on. So how can we balance that? Is there tricks? I know you had mentioned to me about, I love carrots, but we boil them instead of eating them, or not boil them, steam them instead of having them raw, for instance. Do we need to do that with all of our vegetables? Or like, how do we work this? Because I know that I don't feel like I get enough fruits and veggies in my diet.
Mhm.
So can you speak to that for us?
So if someone is just post-surgery and recovering,
Okay.
the diet for LARS is so unsexy, isn't it, everyone? Like, it's just so not a sexy way to eat, and it's a challenge socially. And just being honest. And, when you think about it, there's a lot of pureed foods. And I mentioned that earlier. And it's the same way with the vegetables. They are so beneficial for us to prevent cancer. We need broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, right? The sulforaphane in the cruciferous vegetables to help prevent recurrence. And yet they hurt us if we eat them whole, steamed, chopped up. So if we boil them, steam them, puree them like a broccoli soup, try it. You may need to add like some coconut milk to it to really smooth out that the broccoli itself. So kind of watered down puree. Doesn't sound appetizing, but it's a way to get the nutrients in. It's the same way with carrots. It doesn't have to always be that way. As you recover, as you get stronger, you may be able to have cauliflower, for example, just the tops, not so much the stems, but the florets, and either riced or pureed as well. So it's a matter, I see that you're talking about food journals and just really, we use food journals all the time as nutrition consultants, right? And we're always looking for patterns. And we're looking for digestive outputs and the amount of fiber that we're having and the types of foods. So again, it's trial and error with the vegetables.
Okay. And in regards to, you had mentioned steaming, does it do something like, there's also a question in the chat, like, what does it do to the veggies that makes them more tolerable for our systems when we steam them or boil them or puree them? Is it breaking up fibers?
It's breaking up the fibers, and it's actually, in a lot of cases, it's releasing the nutrients.
Okay. So that they're easier to digest.
Yes, and easier to absorb.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. In regards to beans, I know that it's really hard to have beans. I try to avoid any gassy foods at all, because then it's just danger for my poor stomach and for people around me. So, sorry, I had to. So, is this true? Like, I haven't found that, maybe I'm just not doing it right, but someone told me that in releasing the gas from beans is I can soak them in baking soda. But is that the issue, or is it necessarily the skin of the bean that's the issue for our digestion?
It's all of it.
Okay.
So it mostly is the skin. And to break that down, if you're cooking them from raw, basically, if you're cooking
Mhm.
the beans from bulk, let's say. So
Okay.
yes, the longer that you can actually soak them and let them soften. And yes, you can add in baking soda, a teaspoon to a big pot. You can even cook them with the baking soda. Make sure that you rinse the beans. So in terms of beans, we're talking about kidney beans, lima beans, black beans, right? Anything like those types of beans, a hard bean, versus a green string bean or yellow bean is a different, bit of a different family.
Okay.
So they are not easy to digest anyway, beans and legumes.
Okay. So even, I mean, I haven't attempted recently because, to be honest, I don't really want to go there. I am able to tolerate a very small amount of chickpeas on my experience, especially as a hummus. But very minimal. I know if I've gone too far with the hummus. But so you're saying any bean in general, just because for one, it's a gas-inducing food, which doesn't work well with LARS. I mean, it wreaks havoc on our stomachs, but also just because beans in general are hard to digest.
There.
Okay.
If anyone is using canned chickpeas, maybe you like to make your own hummus, or family members do. A recommendation would be to rinse the cooked chickpeas in a lot of water, and then you should see that the skins will come off. You can actually take the skins off. So that's one thing you can do. Yes, it takes a little longer, but you're removing the skin basically, and you're left with the inner part of the chickpea, and then you puree that in your food processor.
Thank you, Jill. I just want to get back to some previous questions. There was a question about what are superfoods, which is a great question. The other one is vitamins, supplements, anything that you could sort of recommend for LARS specific patients.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that one might have to be for Megan next week.
The vitamins and
But-
supplements, yeah.
Yeah, but to get more superfoods in us and what are they? If you can address that, Jill, would be helpful.
So superfoods it's just kind of a trendy term, and it usually refers to herbs, vegetables, fruit that may have a lot of antioxidants in them. We also, when I hear the word superfood, I think of the green plants, the single cell plants of chlorella and spirulina. So these are grown basically, I was going to say on the ocean, some of them. They're very nutrient dense. So chlorophyll is what gives plants the green color, and that is very beneficial for our cells, for our red blood cells. So we think about that, we can say that is a superfood. For some people, that is actually part of what they are eating. And you can buy those as powders. They can be part of a green powder with other powdered green vegetables, leafy greens, and it's lots of nutrients.
Okay.
Does anybody want to clarify what they mean, or they have something in particular with a superfood? Something in mind?
No, I think that's good. And thank you for that suggestion. I know I take my greens just to try and get as much nutrients in me as well. But yeah, I think that's a great way to do it.
Another really interesting question. So is rice or quinoa bad for LARS? So one of our viewers is wondering, they're so popular, these dishes. How come we're not talking about these?
So white rice, jasmine white rice, is easier to digest than brown rice.
Oh.
Brown rice is more nutrients, more fiber. So depending on where you are in your LARS journey, so to speak, start with the white rice, then do half and half, add in some brown rice. If you're able to tolerate fiber, have wild rice with it. I would say do not be afraid of white rice. We are in a society that is right now, and it is a simple carbohydrate, but if you're pairing it with a protein that, like an animal protein, could be ground turkey, if you can tolerate sweet potato, if you can have olive oil, you know, put some type of healthy fat with it, it should slow down the simple carb, the starchiness of that white rice. It's a
Thanks.
balancing act, everyone. It really is.
Yeah, thank you. I know I've been scared of rice unless I'm eating sushi.
Yeah.
I do want to address another question, which I think is interesting because we are just starting in some cases to be going out more.
Okay.
And there was a question in regards to what is safe to eat at a restaurant? Because as you know, I mean, I can do sushi, but I mean, you do get kind of sick of sushi, but a lot of places, and salads are tough because we'll end up in the washroom. So it's a bit more limiting. Can you think of anything that might be kind of okay to order? It's a tough one. I know we put you on the spot.
I'm going to say a baked potato, and isn't that sad? But seriously, yeah, a baked potato with whatever
I
you
know.
know.
Well, I guess if
And
some
there's
people-
iron in potatoes. There are nutrients in potato, but it's one of those more safer food.
Yeah, well, you got me
Yeah.
onto potatoes. I actually hadn't been for years because I was always told that, you know, they're just a food to avoid. You should be doing sweet potato because there are more nutrients, but yet my body can't handle that. So there was this, oh my God, I'm going to a potato, right? But actually, you know, like you said, I looked it up and there's still protein in it and other nutrients, as long as they don't, you know, put it full of sour cream and all the bacon bits and stuff and
All the
butter.
good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But then, you know, would that even be better digestible in a puree form, right? Like mashed potatoes, which obviously, you know, you have to put some butter or something in there. But maybe even more digestible if you mash it up.
That's true. Let's see. I want to manage time. We are at 4 o'clock. Oh yeah, I love that. Thank you,
Or 7
Angela.
here.
Oh right, sorry, 7 p.m. And Jill's
Eastern.
8.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
It's almost bedtime, eh, Jill?
That's all good.
I have experience clustering. What causes the painful burning? Okay. I might have an idea on that one.
Is it the
there is-
acidity?
Yeah, I'm thinking, but Jill, I don't know if you know this answer, but in regards to clustering, the painful burning that happens, he put it nicely, on the way out. But what causes the painful burning? Is it that we're eating too acidically?
My first thought would be if the feces has a lot of bile in it. If a person, so the bile is made in the liver, stored in the gallbladder, and it helps to break down fat, any type of fat that we eat.
Okay.
So if we're having digestive issues in the stomach and the bile is not, whatever, there might be an impact there from something, then it could be that there's too much bile in the feces, and that may or may not be contributing to the burning sensation.
I guess that would
That's
answer maybe
more-
why during colonoscopy prep it's so painful.
Yeah, good
It's a
point.
lot of bile, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So is there different foods we can eat that helps address us not having so much bile?
Good
Or
question.
is it just our own natural body producing it?
Right, it is. So pineapple helps to break down bile, helps it do its job. Papaya,
Oh, okay.
they're natural, have enzymes in them that actually help break down proteins and fats as well in the food in the stomach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, pineapple, I tend to have that
I would think
once a
that's
week.
very acidic, actually. I wouldn't have
Mm.
thought that. Interesting. There was one question, Jill, about which foods are worth buying organic in a store. I mean, I think this maybe goes beyond the LARS discussion. I don't know if that has an impact, organic food on LARS, but still a very important question.
It is. It's a great question. And every year, the Environmental Working Group actually puts out a list of the safest foods to buy that are organic and non-organic. So if you Google ewg.org.
EWG.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's going to be a list. That's a wonderful site for every human being to look at because it talks about good, what are the best products for skincare? Exactly. What are the foods, drinking water, toothpaste, etc. So in terms of foods, kale is one of the most heavily sprayed. Strawberries are as well. All the things we love. So anything that has a peel on it, though, bananas are typically more safe to purchase non-organic. And sometimes we want to look at that. Right now, what I am finding, and I wonder if anyone else is as well, frozen vegetables that are organic are better priced, good quality. The other thing, wherever you are living, if you can get to know your local farmers, so it could be that they're not growing organic, but they're growing low spray or no spray. So local, no spray or low spray is really beneficial.
I like that frozen organic tip. That's a
Mhm.
great idea.
Yeah, check that out.
Yeah. And fruit and vegetables. I
Fruit and
guess.
vegetables, exactly.
I
Good for the
also want-
budget.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Thank you for that. And I want to mention a tip that you kind of gave me in regards to what's worth buying. I know it's not vegetables, but someone had asked about snacks, and the unbuns was a good snack. It's super expensive. Don't give it to your kids if they don't need it. But I hide mine. But even going to the local gluten-free bakery, I find a very small bagel is expensive anyways. So like you said, Jill, there's good stuff in it. It's high in protein. And for a fast snack, it just put a little peanut butter or whatever on half of it. And that will hold me up for a bit, for sure. And then I don't feel guilty eating more bread.
Mhm.
So I
Good.
liked that one. And I forgot, you gave me a tip on another sweet. I'm a sweet person. I'm sorry. I love my sweets. And I know sugar's not good for us, but you gave me one that had lots of yummy protein and it was really rich. So I didn't need much. And I bought it once and I forget the name of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it
Oh.
chocolate based?
Yes. It was a decadent bar from Whole Foods or somewhere along those lines. I'm gonna have to look it up and I'll send everybody it in the next link because it was really good and I didn't have to have much. And you gave me that as a tip, so I would just slice it up a little bit. And again, don't give it to your kids; it's expensive.
Was
But
it the Lily's brand bar? Lily's
I think
brand?
so. It might, that sounds familiar. Anyways, and I also had to get the Nutracleanse online, by the way. Places like Whole Foods didn't have it, but Amazon had it for a good price. But yeah, sorry, those are just two things that popped in my head. I didn't want to forget before we ended today. And maybe we can just spend a minute or two on the low FODMAP diet. We don't have to get into it much. I know that there was some questions previously asked about it, not here, but in other people have sent me notes. And I just wanted, just because I know I've done it and I do it, I'm not rigid, probably because I still like trying different foods all the time, but it has helped me in regards to monitoring gas and being aware of certain foods that I shouldn't eat. What's your recommendation on the low FODMAP?
I think it's a great approach if you're the type of person that you need a framework and you would like to follow steps and have kind of a guiding tool. It is a very specific diet, and there's a lot of foods on this diet that need to be removed and avoided for a certain period of time. And I don't know if everyone knows what FODMAP means and if they're aware of what this diet is all about, but it's basically looking at simple carbohydrates that digest very easily in our small intestine and bowel. And the FODMAPs are fructooligosaccharides, which are basically simple sugars. They pull water from the bowel to help them digest, but they just hang out and ferment. And that sounds fine, but it's not, because the fermentation makes bubbles and that causes gas. So we end up just passing a lot of gas. It's very uncomfortable. We can be bloated, distended, and feel like we need to defecate all the time, but nothing's coming out but air. So things like, for some people, a FODMAP would be dairy. So the sugar in dairy, lactose, can make them have a lot of gas. Also, there's onions and garlic and something called inulin, which can also be is considered one of the FODMAPs. And for some people, any type of onion can cause flatulence. So I don't want to get into it too much because it's very specific diet. It does include the beans and lentils family and certain fruits and certain sugars like xylitol. So if you're noticing certain foods are causing more gas than others, chances are it falls into this FODMAP category. And you can take it out of the diet for a period of time and then introduce it in and see how your body reacts. So it is a good tool. For example, if you may feel lost, you're like, I need guidance, and you want a framework of what should I start eating? What should I start looking out for and maybe eliminating for a little bit?
Okay, thank you for addressing that, because it's true. Again, it goes back to some people made a comment about dairy, and it works for some and it doesn't for others. And we learned that even with going through the cancer diet in general, they tell you to avoid dairy, yet, you know, in small quantities, it's fine for me. But if I have a big ice cream cone, it doesn't work. So it all depends. We have a question. Can you explain, Jill, why bloating happens when my digestive system can still release gas successfully? Why does it take so long sometimes to move from bloating to successful flatulence? Great question.
It usually is linked with what you're eating, what you are drinking. Are you the type of person that enjoys carbonation? Do you like pop? Are you drinking with your meals, like Xavier pointed out? Is there something called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? And that might be a question for Dr. Megan Bernard next week to explain that more fully.
Okay.
We're very focused on the bowel, like I said, with LARS, and bacteria and bloating can also, there can be an overgrowth of bacteria in our small intestine and causing bloat. And that is linked with the FODMAP diet as well.
Okay.
So FODMAP, SIBO, LARS, intermittent fasting, superfoods. You just want to hide under the covers. No dairy, a little bit of dairy, some yogurt, right? Like all these things, it's just, yeah. And it's all about what's going to work for you, and it's trial and error. And I know that's not the exciting response that anybody really wants. We want the definitive answer, but we have to do trial and error, and the food journal is key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
that empowerment and self-aware. Yeah,
Definitely. Thank you, Jill. This has been really informative. I learn something every time I talk to you, and I've gone on your site, which, by the way, Jill has some great recipes on her site. If anybody
I've
is
just
looking
posted it in the
for
chat.
this.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there any last questions before we sign off with Jill? I just want to give you a chance.
I wish. So the question is Jill available to CCC members for one-on-one nutrition support? So unfortunately, we don't have Jill as part of our team, although I'd really love to, because you're fantastic. But but I don't know. I mean, maybe at some point a little further down the road, we could, we could have Jill back for another discussion, a follow-up discussion. But certainly, you're available, Jill, for one-on-ones professionally. Obviously it's not covered under CCC, but you're still taking clients, and you're open to one-on-one sessions.
yes, I am.
Okay.
And I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and the
Okay.
consults are just like this. It's virtual.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can, stay in your comfy clothes, and we have a one-on-one discussion.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe there's a way that we could even organize if people are interested, and it could be pricey. I mean, we all know that during COVID, it's not so simple for everyone. So maybe we could, create a group session if there's an interest in that. We can talk about that as well. So again, like Connie said at the beginning of the evening, please, if you have feedback about tonight's session, or, something a topic you wanted us to address with Jill, but we didn't get to it, send me all that, and we will try to come up with ways to address questions and, to get everybody heard. Also, just one last thing is that, so with Jill's, everybody saw Jill's website that I sent, I hope. In addition to that, just under that, I sent a link to our upcoming patient conference on clinical trials, but very, very patient friendly. Okay, so anybody who has questions, we're going to debunk some myths about clinical trials and how they're this, last resort type of treatment, or, only doctors can know what clinical trials are about and what are going on. We want to inform patients so that patients can then go to their doctors and ask about these things and get the answers that they need. So the URL for the complimentary sign up is posted just under Jill's, if you go up in the chat, just under Jill's website. And everybody, we're just getting comment after comment about how wonderful this was, Jill. So, we really, really thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I'm really glad to be here. And these are great questions. I was hoping the level of knowledge and awareness that from the individuals here and your questions, really timely, really glad to be able to speak to you, and I thank you. You're doing great work, everyone.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much. And so are you, that's for sure. And we're glad to have you in our corner.
Yeah, and just before we sign off for tonight, there was a topic regarding a forum in regards to LARS. And I know that there are Facebook groups that are forums that are online chats, and you can ask questions and get feedback. We were also talking about how nice it is to have the face-to-face, to feel like you're not alone. And you can ask your peers pretty much anything and get answers. So if you are interested in being a part of a peer support group where we would meet, say once a month or whatever the schedule would be, please reach out to Hannah, because she can put you on that list. And if we get enough interest, it would be definitely worth doing. I know there are so many other topics we could cover. With LARS, there's everything from we're trying to nail down, information on pelvic floor, and even things like sacral nerve stimulation, tibial nerve stimulation. We're looking at because again, diet is a portion, and there's other things that need to be done to help someone. I don't want to say ever be LARS free, but be able to have a better quality of life. And we need to look at all the different areas. The same thing with, relationships, and there's the emotional side of it that's not being addressed anywhere really, on how LARS affects your family life, your relationships, your intimacy, all that stuff. So there's lots we could cover. So if you are interested, please reach out, and we'll put your name on the list. So I just want to, I know we're running out of time, so I apologize for the not being able to necessarily share tips, but if you do have tips you can share, please send them on to Hannah, because we can maybe put together a one-pager and send it out to everybody if there's lots of different tips that weren't addressed today that's working for you.
Yeah, I'm just posting here in case some of you don't have my email address. Sorry, I'm just going to post it in the chat. I think most of you do anyway, but please feel free to provide me with any, topics of interest. And again, the way that we want to create our services and our programs and our service offers at Colorectal Cancer Canada is by determining, what the patients need, where the gaps are. We don't want to, we don't want to just rehash the same information that you guys already have. We really want to find where the gaps are, and we want to fill them. So keep the suggestions coming, and we thank you all for being here tonight. We'll see you all next week. Yes, except for you, Jill. But if you want to come, you're more than welcome.
Yes, next week, Dr. Megan Bernard will talk naturopathy. So please sign in next week. And Hannah will send you a link.
The link on Monday. Yep.
On Monday.
Yep.
All right. To this.
So if you were there tonight, you'll be sent the link next week.
Great.
Okay.
Nice to see you. I hope to see you next week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
everyone. Okay.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.